has heard about it. They've listened to it. They've got an email funnel about it. But today we have a special show because we're going to explain, how to use essential oils, how to read essential oils, the safety of essential oils, how to use them correctly, and from the experts. And one expert in the field is going to be our guest, Kris Wrede. But first, before we go there, we want to remind all our listeners out there all around the world, thank you for listening. And hopefully you'll come join us on our Food is Medicine retreat. If you go to Sanjevani, spelled SANJEVANI.net, you can learn about our Food is Medicine retreat, August 5th through 11th in Curacao, the wellness island of Curacao. Join Maureen and I and Robert Scott Bell for a wonderful 5-day health vacation. And also, I want to give a shout out to my wonderful co-host, Maureen. It's her birthday, so happy birthday, Maureen.
Hey, happy birthday.
Yay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get into this topic today. Today, we're going to talk about is essential oils. And Maureen, we have a wonderful guest today, Kris Wrede. Can you go ahead and give our listeners a little bit of a background of who we have as our special guest?
I would love to do that. Kris Wrede received certification in aromatherapy and teacher training from Michael Scholes. I love Michael Scholes. School of Aromatic Studies in 1996. Advanced training in the chemistry of essential oils and aromatherapy from Purdue University's International Training Program in Essential Oils in 1997. Advanced aromatherapy certification through the Pacific Institute of Aromatherapy with Kurt Schnaubelt, 1998, and advanced training from Master Perfumer Catherine de Graaf, 1999. She studied with researched aromatics extensively in Europe as well as in the United States. Kris has developed numerous aromatic product lines and custom fragrances for esteemed clients including W Magazine, Jones New York, Mirage Hotel Las Vegas, Treasure Island Hotel Las Vegas, Epicurean Discovery, La Posada Resort and Spa, Inn and Spa at Loretto Santa Fe, Rosewood Resorts, and Urban Oasis Chicago. She writes articles for international aromatherapy publications and is a lecturer for aromatic and perfumery events nationwide. The use of plant and flower essences for therapy of mind and body and spirit were once considered the exclusive provenance of Egyptian priests. Kris Wrede, Aromatic Alchemist and Natural Perfumer, has been practicing aromatic alchemy and perfumery since 1990. She specializes in exclusive fragrances for corporate and individual clients and for noteworthy events.
Wow, what a resume. Thank you for joining us today. How are you doing today, Kris?
Welcome. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
All right.
I would love for you to tell people how they can get a hold of you with your website and whatever other contacts you'd like to give people.
Sure. I'm still chilling in the 505 with my phone number, even though I live in Denver area right now. But I'm at 505-231-5257. The name of my business is Kismet Potions. So you can just do kismetpotions.com. That's KISMETPOTIONS.com. Or you can email me at kismetpotions@comcast.net.
All right, Kris, let us know. For 28 years veteran in this field, so most people have just heard of essential oils in, say, the last 5 years, right? Or 10 years, but you 28 years, okay? So it's like practicing medicine. Like you've had this knowledge and, working with what we consider and what, those people who are truly understanding the field of essential oils with the experts, not just marketers, but the real experts in the official schools of trade. What made you become interested in essential oils and perfuming?
I was always, even as a child, really interested in fragrance and really natural things like flowers. And my mom was a really good cook, grew a lot of flowers. My dad was a gardener. So I always was really interested in the natural plant world, especially. And we ate really naturally in our house. But 28 years ago, I got in a car accident and a friend of mine said, "Oh, you should go to this acupuncturist and maybe he'll help you with your pain." And what happened was I went to him and he gave me a book by Robert Tisserand, which Robert Tisserand is one of my mentors, one of my people that's influenced me, one of the best aromatherapists in the world, and it was called The Art of Aromatherapy. And I thought, wow, what is this? What is aromatherapy? And so I went to this really cool store called Sherwin's in Chicago, and I bought every essential oil they had, and then it kind of just started from there. And then 3 years later, I started my business.
So from an essential oil standpoint, who have been your greatest mentors? I mean, obviously Tisserand was first influence, but obviously Maureen was talking about your background, training with wonderful people in the field at prestigious universities.
Yeah, I mean, Purdue University, that was Jim Simon, and he's at Rutgers right now, but he was absolutely amazing and continues to be a mentor, in the field. And then someone I've never met, her name is Julia Lawless, but she wrote an amazing book called The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Essential Oils, and everything was in Latin as far as the names. So it wasn't alphabetized by oil, it was alphabetized by Latin names. So it was a pain at first, but it was great because then I had to learn all the Latin names, or I got to learn all the Latin names because I was sick of going, back and forth, to the glossary. Sure. So anyway, so she, even though I've never met her, she wrote some amazing books on aromatherapy. And then Catherine DeGraff, I did a number of classes with her, and she is just an amazing perfumer and has developed perfume lines, natural perfume lines. And I think, I'm not even sure, I've been trying to find out if she's still even alive. If so, she would be close to 90, I think.
Wow.
So anyway, but she really got me started on the path of natural perfumery as well.
And can you explain to the listeners the difference between an essential oil and a fragrance or perfume, or the similarities and differences?
Excellent question. So they're all going to have chemical constituents, right? But the chemical constituents that you're getting in a synthetic fragrance are just that, they're synthetic. So you're not going to have the aromatic molecule components that you do in something that's from a plant. So when, we'll get into this later, I'm sure, but when you're doing the testing that's necessary to make sure that it's an essential oil, you're going to use a GC, you're going to use a mass spectrometer, you're going to use, optical rotation, you're going to use sensory evaluation, there's going to be all these things. But the main difference between the two is that you're not going to get the benefits, all right, the therapeutic benefits from a synthetic fragrance than you are from a plant. I mean, think about it. Up to the late 1800s, it was all plants. I mean, that's what everything was. But as you know, Dr. Pai, I mean, the majority of medicines on the market today are some kind of a derivative of either chemical constituents like salicylic acid, right, from wintergreen. And, those became like the polio vaccine. All of those became what is our modern medicine today. But up until then, it was all from plants. People lived for thousands, tens of thousands, millions of years with these plant components. And so that's why they still teach herbalism, and that's why you can go into a store and buy herbs and essential oils, because that's the way that it used to be. And so it's gotten kind of convoluted since then, for a number of different reasons.
Right. And when we talk about oils, for example, like, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Fivita. When we look at, oils, even using from the hemp oil, CBD extract, we're looking at organic, we're looking at full spectrum. Go to fivita.com to learn more about what we use in our practice and what we recommend for our patients. But yeah, it's a interesting and important distinction to know what is real and what's not real, because there's so much mismarketing, so much understanding of now the industry that can actually make chemical derivatives or adulterations that, even from a nutraceutical, we see it in nutraceuticals all the time. We even see adulterated nutraceuticals with pharmaceuticals. And so we can see that the biochemistry of pharma now has kind of invaded all health and wellness medicines, and that can be a trick.
Like seeing lavender in your dishwashing liquid or something like that is a synthetic lavender.
Well, it's not synthetic lavender. It's actually it's a hybrid of spike lavender and lavender, right? But it's super cheap. It's like a third of the price of lavender. And so what people are doing is they'll say lavender dish soap or lavender this, lavender that. And you look down on the ingredients and it's not actually lavender, it's lavandin, because it's so much cheaper. But the other bad thing about, not that lavandin is a bad thing, but that most people think, oh, it's just like lavender. It can actually be irritating to the skin, where lavender is just the opposite. And it can actually be kind of, not uplifting per se, but, it's not going to calm you down like lavender. So when people buy lavandin, they're not aware of this, right? So
right, and some people can have the opposite effects or a side effect. So interesting thing is now coming after this short commercial break, we're going to talk about this billion-dollar industry. We're going to get into some of the claims or some of the marketing claims that have been profoundly all over the internet about curing this and curing that, from your pets to your flus and colds to cancer. And more importantly, we want to talk about how to look and evaluate potencies of oils, purity of oils, safety of oils. So we'll be right back after this short commercial break from our sponsors.
Clear.
All right, everybody, here we're on Facebook Live. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a great show. We're going to learn a lot. We have a lot to go. We're here with our specialist in field and friend and colleague for 28 years. We're going to call her a veteran in the field of essential oils and aromatherapy, Kris Wrede. Thank you, Kris, for joining us. You have a shout out to anybody on Facebook or anybody else you want to talk about? Just say hello to all the former or friends of aromatherapy.
Hi, everybody. You like my background, Kris?
I love it.
Lavender fields.
Marines in the lavender fields.
One of the most beautiful things on the planet. Yeah.
I know. And, lavender is an interesting oil because, as you said, there's so many derivatives of it. And then there's, people sometimes overuse it. And it can have the reverse effects. Then.
Exactly. And that's what Dr. Pai said, is that, when you do overuse it, most essential oils, 98%, 99% of essential oils should be used diluted, okay?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that on the show because I really want that on the record. Like, people need to know how to use it safely, effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had someone yesterday, I spoke to someone and they were putting it on them directly and they're like, oh, it's trying to help me sleep. I'm like, but your skin might be, and he had a rash. I'm like, well, I'm not sure if that's causing the rash.
Yeah.
Right. And I said, you're supposed to put it in a carrier. I was like, well, it just says to put it topically directly. And I'm like, then it's not really a true,
wow.
Or it might already be diluted or blended to be put topically, but that's not then the true essence of what you and I would be thinking of as an essential.
Well, and it might say in jojoba oil, which is usually the preferred base because it won't go rancid, but
right.
A lot of times they have it in smaller letters, so you just don't know. But overall, yeah, most essential oils should always be diluted. So,
right. And, definitely, if you're going to use them with your pets, I think you need to learn how to be very, very careful with that. There's a big movement right now about
back in 30 seconds.
Using essential oils with your pet. So I think that's something we should definitely talk about.
Yeah. And what did you say the other day, Sunil, about how many thousands,
hundreds of millions of receptors more in their nose?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So it smells good to us. It's totally killing them.
Exactly.
It's burning out the receptors. People are like, oh, put it on their nose or put it on their paws and lick it. I'm like,
I remember I used to try and use some on one of my dogs, and as soon as I'd open the cap, he would run away.
Yeah.
Now I know why.
I know, right?
Yeah.
In the atmosphere, it can be okay.
You are tuned in to Take Back Your Health. To reach our program today, call 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or by email to radio@sanjevani.net. That's radio@sanjevani.net. Now, let's return to Take Back Your Health.
welcome, everybody. Most people around the world have been using essential oils for health and wellness due to the heavy marketing and the profits that have been attained by selling them. Many of us have been, participated on online summits. We've done seminars, and almost everybody has a friend or a neighbor that's in a multi-level marketing company selling essential oils. And as a result, the global essential oil market now accounts for about 5.91 billion. That's 5.91 billion in 2016 and is expected to reach 12.85 billion by 2023. This is a huge exponential growth industry. So essential oils have been marketed to be used for everything from skin diseases, colds, flus, to cancer, to you and your pets. And many essential oils have been mismarketed and adulterated and potentially dangerous. Can you give some examples, Kris, of how different species and parts of plants are used and, more importantly, maybe misused for the manufacturing of oils?
Well, there's so many facets of this. I know we don't we don't have enough time, but one of the things that we were talking about on the break is that lavandin is often misrepresented as lavender, and lavandin can actually be very like your skin. You can have like you can develop rashes and things like that. It's not calming and gentle like lavender is, but it's so much cheaper. It's about a third of the price of lavender. So a lot of companies will use that. And I did a little test in a natural grocery store about 6 months ago. And so I went around and I checked about 20 different products that said lavender this. And about 80% of them, instead of having just lavender, it was lavandin was one of the first ingredients.
Sure.
So there's something called the INCI deck, the International Nomenclature of Cosmetic Ingredients. And the INCI deck are basically the people that go around and say, your Latin name is correct, this is correct, your ingredients are correct. They don't have the time to do that. There's billions and billions of cosmetic products, and essential oils are way, way, way down on the list. So that's one thing, is that we're totally misrepresenting. Like Lavandula officinalis is not the right name for lavender. And I would say about half the products out there use that Latin name.
So that will say that again, so the listeners can.
So Lavandula officinalis is the incorrect name for lavender, right?
Okay, so everybody at home, go to your cabinets, go to your drawers, pick up your lavender oil, and take a look at the Latin name. Because again, most people, we're not botanists, and they're not like plant,
exactly
people. So they're just gonna look at the first word lavender or even something close to it, and think that that's it, not knowing the rest of the Latin name is very specific.
And so what should it say?
Yeah, it should say Lavandula angustifolia. So they might not be particularly trying to misrepresent what's in the bottle. They just don't know. And the inky people haven't come after them in order, for them to say, you got to change your label. So, but misrepresented is probably the number one thing, as far as labeling and things like that. That's serious, but the number one most serious thing is adulteration. Okay. Why do companies adulterate? Because they want to make more money. It's cheap.
What does it mean to adulterate?
Okay, so that's an excellent question too. So using lavandin as, not just instead of lavender, but they might use, like maybe 30% lavender, 70% lavandin. So they smell similar, but you're going to smell that camphor note in the lavandin. That's going to be very different than, let's say, a French high altitude lavender, which your beautiful background, you're in a field of French lavender. All right. That's going to smell very different than lavandin. So adulteration is mainly done because of availability, but the number one reason is because of price. People just want to, market things like they might spray like a certain ingredient that could come from a cheaper plant. Like they might spray geraniol on rose just to get a rose that, is going to extend longer, because geraniol is one of the chemical constituents in rose, but it's a cheaper ingredient when you take it from geranium instead of taking it from rose. So that's not done quite as much, but there's been a lot of things that, companies have sprayed things on their plants to make them seem like, even during the GC, the gas chromatograph and the mass spectrometer, that seem like they're that plant, but they're actually from a cheaper plant.
Yeah, so. And in fact, when we see it even from the nutraceutical supplement industry now, like for example with curcumin, with our boss Merrick, the company that manufactures ours actually are testing other people's products, and we're actually doing carbon dating because there's so much synthetic curcuminoids being manufactured in a laboratory being put in cheap products, and that's why you can get something for a couple of dollars on the shelf. Likewise, we do know that there's also a super high margin when people go for multi-level marketing companies. One of the examples that I know personally, because we do formulations and we do consulting for a lot of companies, is that some of these essential oil companies can have a base oil all in, manufactured cost, bottle, label, everything for 50 cents, and they're selling it anywhere from $65 to $85 on the market, which is 100 to 160 time markup, right? And then it's like, that's not really the real oil, because just the multiples. But you have to look at when people go for multi-level marketing, there's so much money that has to be given for upline, downline, for trips and this, that actually at the end of the day, it all goes for marketing and for bonuses and profits. But the little is really, really spent on the actual quality of the oil. And most people, again, no fault of their own, they just won't know the difference. Now, can you explain the dangers of using essential oils, or how should someone use an essential oil, say topically, and how that, when they get something in the bottle, what should they do with it?
Well, one of the things that it was about a year ago, and I don't name names of companies, but it was a webinar, and it was a company saying that that lavender could be considered a carrier oil, and because it was so mild, and that you could use it to actually carry other essential oils. And I couldn't even believe that I was hearing that. I mean, lavender is one of the most mild oils, and it's one of the only oils that most people can put on what we call neat. And so neat means directly out of the bottle.
Right.
But, 99% of oils need to be mixed with something in order to be put on the body directly. Essential oils are 75 to 100 times stronger than the plants that they come from.
Right.
So, I mean, there's just no way that you should do that. And then once you tell people, you give them an inch and they take a mile.
Sure.
Right.
So to say that you can use lavender as a carrier oil, so a carrier can mean anything. It can mean water. It can mean bath salts, even like sea salts, Epsom salts. It can mean lotion. It can mean a carrier traditionally is like avocado oil, jojoba oil, rosehip seed oil. So depending on the application of what you're using it for, you always need to use a carrier. And that is the number one most misrepresented thing on Facebook all the time. You're always seeing people with rashes all over their body.
We see so many patients coming with rashes.
Crazy.
People send us pictures on email. People send us all sorts of call up and like, oh, I have this rash, and or my kid has this rash, and my pet has this rash, and it's like, oh, but what I've been doing lately, I've been putting this to treat this or treat that again.
And they use it in combination with prescription drugs, and then you really have a problem.
Well, and one of the things that I've seen too is people wanting to use things in their eyes. Last year, people were saying, oh, rosemary and lavender, put it in your mascara to make your eyelashes grow. Excuse me, you do not want to put anything anywhere near any mucous membrane that has anything to do with essential oil. A friend asked me last week, she said, oh, a friend of mine has a rash around her eyes. She wants to put chamomile and lavender. And I said, well, those are good oils. They're awesome oils, but you don't want to put anything around the eye area. And the last thing you want to do when you have a rash is put another essential oil on top of it. Maybe a carrier oil, like something nice and mild, like rosehip. But I mean, I'm all for one and saying, don't use essential oils in these ways. I
know a lot of people are now say, oh, you can drink it, you can put it in your water, you can and we've had people with esophageal burns and all. And then what they do, they drink more water to chase it down.
Yes.
Right. Remember the story you told me about the woman who had been drinking grapefruit oil? Tell the story, because it's so important for people to hear this. They don't realize how many grapefruits they're drinking in one drop of oil. So tell us the story.
So I was getting a massage, and all of a sudden, and it was in Albuquerque actually, and I heard this voice, and we were doing the intake, and I heard this voice, and I was like, what is, it sounded like a monster or something. And finally, in my mind, for some weird reason, I heard grapefruit. I was like, oh, it was just like this horrible noise. And so the massage therapist and I ran outside, and the woman, she was saying grapefruit. And I said, oh my God, you swallowed grapefruit. Let's find some massage oil. Well, most of the massage oil was scented, and we're going crazy because, I had no idea how much she swallowed. We found some coconut oil. So I took a couple of tablespoons of it and had her do it, because the essential oils are oils. They're fat. So you need the fat to attract to another fat. So the coconut oil attracted to the grapefruit seed oil, or not, it wasn't grapefruit seed oil, it was grapefruit essential oil. And she said, well, my rep told me to do that for digestion. Well, first of all, who knows? She kind of probably went like that.
Yeah, she
might have,
took it like a shot, a couple of drops down the throat.
Yeah. And grapefruit isn't good for digestion
no,
at
no,
all.
No.
It's just not.
No.
So grapefruit seed maybe, but not grapefruit. So, but she could barely get words out the whole time. I mean, we were there for probably another 20 minutes or so, and she was like, and she managed to, get out some words. Like I said, like her rep told her to do it, but you don't want to take essential oils internally. It's just not, I mean, and I don't want to say unless you know what you're doing, because that whole give an inch, take a mile sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
most people think that they went through a seminar, or just took a, like they got something in a brochure, and now they're some kind of practitioner, healthcare practitioner of some sorts of teaching people, oh, I can just self-treat. And we all want to teach people how to become more self-aware, doing self-care, but the care part has to be, and the safety has to be there. And a lot of people, we see it all the time, especially with the rashes, people putting things in their eyes. I mean, literally, like people have to stop and think, what is this? What am I doing? And what happens? Everybody's gonna say, well, you can say this in a seminar, but you can't say this outside the seminar. Then you got to be hearing. Then you're hearing different things. So when we come back after this short break, we're gonna talk about distinctions like, is there such thing as certification for, quote unquote therapeutic grade essential oils? Sustainability, endangered species, organic or not organic, and just talking a little bit about what's happening now in the culture of just what are we doing with these plants and how we're actually maybe overusing them and oversourcing them. So after this short commercial break, we're coming back with some real important information. Stay tuned.
Stay with us.
Clear.
All right, everybody, we're on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us. We are talking about essential oils. Again, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Fivita here, fivita.com. And also, go to purebetaglucan.com to learn more about what you can do for your immune system. We're going to be posting more of the new upcoming studies that was just recently published on comparisons on the strongest glucan for your immune system, in vitro and vivo studied on the market. So what a great show this is so far. I wish we had more time because there's so many things to talk about. But I do want to get into this concept on the next segment on, for most people on Facebook, this is key because everybody's selling it. I think everybody has a good intention. We're not here to bash anybody or criticize. But the thing is, it's kind of this pendulum swung the other way because now these companies market so heavily. We have to look at, is there now more harm than good with the intentions that's being sold out there?
And people need to know that essential oils are not toys, something fun to play with. Oh, let's have a party and play with essential oils, or give them to our kids because they're fun to play with. They're serious medicine.
And that really is something that I want to address, and I'm sure you guys do too, but the use on babies and children. And I'm sure you get things in your office, and I've seen a ton of things on Facebook. I've seen people with like blisters on the bottom of their baby's feet because they put neat oregano oil on baby's feet.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I mean, it's just right. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen similar things.
And I did see, we use like an eco baby, hypoallergenic laundry detergent. And the other day I by mistake picked up the wrong one. It's just like, because it said baby and said this and said, free. And then it said lavender. And then I did look in that, and I noticed that so I actually brought it home. I didn't read it carefully. And then I did get itchy. And I'm like, why am I itching? Because I never get itching from and I looked and I go, but they say like, clean. And then they put that at the very end. And it has to be like 0. I can't have any of it. And then if someone wanted to add
20 seconds,
they can do that. So.
Well, and one of the things is just because it's a plant doesn't mean that people aren't going to have reactions to it.
Exactly.
I mean, it could be too strong for some people.
I know, just because they put Winnie the Pooh or a flower doesn't mean it's safe.
Especially a baby.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So before we talk about therapeutic goals, I'm going to talk about the internal thing. Just all I'm going to start off.
You are tuned in to Take Back Your Health. To reach our program today, call 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or by email to radio@sanjevani.net. That's radio@sanjevani.net. Now, let's return to Take Back Your Health.
Wow, what a show. We're talking about essential oils with expert in the field, veteran in essential oils, 28 years, Kris Wrede. And, we were just talking before the break about, people taking essential oils internally and how powerful they are and how dangerous they can be. For example, in our practice, when we use things like oregano oil, right, we use a supercritical extract, and that's for treatment of, conditions like infections. So if I got a patient and they come into my office and they have upper respiratory infection or they have candida, we do a stool testing, they come back positive. We look at these things and we can give them this therapeutic grade, super critical extract. But what people don't know is that when they take, essential oil blends now, and the essential oil companies now are going into the capsule market and the soft gel market and say, hey, take this for your digestion. That is antimicrobial, not just killing the bad stuff like a candida, but it also knocks out the probiotics. And so the whole microbiome is knocked out. And so when we give these things, we only give it for, 5 days, 7 days, like an antibiotic. But people are like, oh, I take this every day. Or I bought this for digestive health blend or whatever they're calling. There's different companies out there, again, not picking on anybody. But the problem is, even we see this in nutraceuticals of like herbal pills, like here's a joint formula and they put, oregano oil. Yes, it does have anti-inflammatory benefits, but also has antimicrobial actions. And yes, they knock out their microbiome, lowering their immune system, leaky gut, more inflammation. Then they're selling you 10 other products. So again, people have to be very careful. We don't recommend people taking them internally, no matter what a rep says, no matter what a person says. They're not the people at the end of the day that actually have to save people. We do. And so that's so I have to put the responsibility on. Everybody else likes to dish out and give healthcare advice, but no one's really able to take the responsibility, which they should, for doing that.
And remember that water does not quench that fire. Only oil does. Yes. Water makes it worse.
Makes it worse, yeah.
All right, so one thing that we always hear in the marketplace now, is, and more than anybody being in this industry for a long time, is the concept of like grading oils or certification oils or therapeutic grades, or there's a variety of nomenclature or classifications that people have, trademark names and slogans to try to say that this oil is different or better or has gone through some rigorous process. Can you explain to the listeners now, is there such a process? Is there such a standardization?
Well, okay, so we talked a little bit before about how tiny the essential oil industry is. First of all, we're too tiny of an industry to have the government assign us any type of grades. There's no such thing as perfume grade, clinical grade, medical grade, therapeutic grade. I mean, Robert Tisserand, who's one of my mentors and the one that, has taught me a lot about essential oils over the years, I mean, he started the term therapeutic grade back in the 80s, and he rused the day that he did that. He said, oh my God, he said, I can't believe I ever did that. He said it was just a marketing thing, but now a lot of multi-level firms and other firms too have taken on this term therapeutic grade or
pharmaceutical
grade. Yeah. Exactly. And there's just, you're right, Maureen, there's no such thing. I mean, we're just too small.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So there's wild harvested, wild crafted, there's organic, there's USDA certified organic. So those are the grades that that most essential oils can get assigned. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the USDA certified organic for people in developing nations is way too expensive for the most part, unless they've got a backing of a big company.
And what about third-party testing?
I mean, like I see some vitamin, commercials, third-party testing or, independent testing organization. I can't speak to that because who is your third-party tester?
Right.
I mean, what do they have in the game? How much are you paying?
Third-party.
Who are they? What is their name?
Yeah.
Are they a chemist? I mean, do they know how to run a gas chromatograph and a mass spectrometer? I mean, do they know how to do all these different evaluatory techniques?
Yeah, one of the things that we've seen on the nutraceutical side, and even when I work with like hemp oil companies and doing some consulting and work with them, is that in the early days, a lot of these third-party independent laboratories were a subsidiary or a sidearm. They just created and they research. It's just like an oil company having this is our wildlife fund that says our fracking is okay for this. Wilderness lake, it's certified. So we have to be really careful because there is no national government standardized.
But there is an overarching whatever in Switzerland. Is that correct? Is there some overarching no authority who says you guys are not telling the truth about your oils?
You know what? I'm not familiar with them. I mean, there is, like there's GRAS, GRAS, like generally recognized as safe.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know about any place in Switzerland, but there could be.
Okay, so there really isn't
Yeah.
like an FDA, like the FDA does anything anyway, but there
Right.
is no big overarching authority who is monitoring these
It
companies.
could be for the EU, but as far as anything coming into the States, I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
And what
But
about like sustainability and endangered species? Because I know this is
all right.
something that, again, when I mentioned before earlier, this 6 billion market and going to 12 billion, in a few years. So obviously, just like
Yeah.
anything else that we find, even in the supplement industry or the superfood industry, once we find something, everybody over exploits it or over harvests it or over takes, they take it out without replanting. Can you explain a little bit about that?
So one of the things that was on the endangered list for many, many years, it was like almost there, was sandalwood. Okay, so grown the Santalum album, which is grown in India and also Sri Lanka, but there's really hardly any left. So because it takes about 20 years for the trees to grow to fruition, so to speak, so that you can actually get enough oil out of it to make it worth it. So now there's two other types. There's Santalum austrocaladonicum, which is from New Caledonia, which is an island kind of off the coast of Australia.
Right.
And also in Australia, it's Santalum spicatum. So it doesn't have the richness and the fullness, but they're ethically harvesting it. So if you find Santalum album, it might not actually be Santalum album, and it's going to be 2 to 3 times as expensive as a Santalum spicatum. But now at least the industry, it never was officially endangered, but now at least the industry has responded, and you have to plant 10, 15 times more than you actually take out if you're doing it from an essential oil standpoint, because it takes that long for the trees to grow.
Right.
So, and it takes 7 to 10 days to actually, distill it. So there's all these different things. People say, well, how come essential oils are so expensive? Why are all the precious oils precious? Well, one of the reasons is because in the industry, we take this really seriously. I mean, a couple of the big multi-level companies have gotten fined severely, millions of dollars over the last couple of years. One of the things that they were bringing in, which has been high on the endangered list for years, is rosewood.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So rosewood, if you see rosewood somewhere, ask your supplier, where did you get that? I mean, I've got some in stock right now, but it's because I've had it for a while.
I have some that I've had for many years.
Exactly.
I'm hanging on to it tight.
I'm hanging on to it, right? And spikenard, which is one of my favorite Latin names, Nardostachys jatamanzi. Anyway, so spikenard is also on the endangered list, and they were bringing in these oils. And that's just not cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how, but the FDA was doing a good thing by finding out about that and finding in those millions of dollars. But the thing about it is unfortunately, some of these companies are multi-billion-dollar companies, and they don't care. They'll pay those $1 million fines because they're so huge.
Yeah,
$1 million here,
$1 to $2 billion, usually is kind of estimated in these big companies.
Frankincense kind of falls into that category too. It takes many years to be able to tap a frankincense tree again after you've tapped it a few times, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
I mean, there's
5 years.
Yeah, there's so many different forms of frankincense, and the Boswellia carteri, which is the one that has been, world renowned, really, that's grown usually always in the Middle East, pretty much. But I mean, now a lot of these companies have because of some fallacies, and we talked about this briefly before, that frankincense cures cancer. So the land is being raped, from using all the different types of frankincense because people think that it shrinks tumors and cures cancer. We don't know that yet. We are in the in vivo testing stage right now. In order to get to the in vitro, am I saying it the right way?
Right. And then when we also look at, for example, what we have in the bosmeric, right, our anti-inflammatory,
exactly.
The components of that, which is the boswellic acids, the AKBBA, now the polysul fraction, we do have studies in animals, we do have studies in humans, but that's different than what people are extracting from to make the oils. And even the species is different, right?
I mean, you're still extracting it from the resin,
right?
But what's happening is the chemical constituent, that boswellic acid, is left over in the resin. It doesn't come into the essential oil.
But everybody likes to borrow the data saying, oh, I heard the study, or there's some kind of, and this happens in all the dietary supplement industry and in the health and wellness industries, that they take one thing and then they make the magic leap. But then unfortunately, what we see, since we see a lot of cancer patients in our clinic, is people are taking these essential oils, for their intention of trying to treat their disease, not helping them, and they're not getting better because they're not using the right evidence-based practices. And that's
Thank you. Yeah.
No, I read the studies on the oils. The oil that they showed that helped to shrink and reduce the tumors was actually myrrh oil. It wasn't even the bus.
Right. And then after this video, you're going to start seeing myrrh everywhere, because everybody's going to go, oh, wow, there's a boom, and the myrrh tree is going to be extinct.
It's just too early. I mean, it could be another 5 to 10 years before we get to animal and human testing to see if it actually could shrink tumors, and be helpful with cancer. So there's a possibility. It's an amazing anti-inflammatory. That's why you have it in your Bosmeric.
Right.
So
after this short commercial break, what we'll do is we're going to come back and now give everybody at home what they can use. Just simple things that you can use, simple oils, how to apply it, different ailments. Here's a take home of, like, now we kind of educated people what to look for and what to think about when you're buying a product. Now we want to look at what can you do right now at home this evening or today. All right, we'll be back.
We have a caller who's calling in for us.
Okay, then we'll take the caller right after the break.
Okay.
All right, hang on.
Thanks.
Clear.
We have Irene, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, she's still on there.
Okay, all right. So everybody, thank you for watching Facebook Live. We are talking about essential oils today. Again, everybody, please go look at sanjevani.net, SANJEVANI.net, and join us. Look at the Food is Medicine Retreat. If you're looking at something to change your life, be a health vacation, really invest in your health. Instead of going to Disneyland or Las Vegas or something like that, come in and go to Curacao, a wonderful island with wonderful people.
So beautiful. Beautiful people, beautiful place. The water is healing. It's a vortex. It is, honestly, it's an amazing place to have a health vacation.
Yeah, and you get to meet a bunch of people from around the world, which is great because everybody's here to learn from each other. And what better place to make friends of people who want to be healthy and stay healthy and do kind of cool things.
You coming, right, Kris?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good.
If I can speak.
That would be great.
So everybody, again, we want to just mention a shout out just for our sponsors, again, Vita, which is 5Vita here, 5Vita.com to look at the best organic full terpene profile CBD hemp oil.
And speaking of terpenes, maybe we should bring that up in the next segment too. If we have time, there's so many things to squeeze in.
I know. I'll come back.
Yeah, we'll come back because I think, just getting the
another time
stir of the information. I'm sure we're going to get tons of emails from this discussion. I'm sure we're going to get trolled as well. But that's okay because people need to know. I mean, people can't get hurt or injured with the right intention, just giving the wrong product.
I know. We still have to talk about babies and children and dogs and cats.
And I've seen people like burning.
You are tuned in to Take Back Your Health. To reach our program today, call 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or by email to radio@sanjevani.net. That's radio@sanjevani.net. Now, let's return to Take Back Your Health.
What a great show it is today. That we're talking about essential oils with Kris Wrede, and Maureen and I have just been talking about, sometimes the dangers, because we really want to first make people aware that there is dangers with natural products. And you just got to use them correctly. You got to be educated and not just be sold some fancy marketing piece, which we're all getting marketed every day. And we were talking about before over the commercial was the aspect of, people putting things directly on their body neat rather than putting it with the carrier oil, things that can burn their body, things putting it internally, knocking out the microbiome, let's say like oregano oil, not understanding that it's not only just going to kill the bad stuff, but also kills the good stuff. You were giving some examples with babies, Kris.
Well, I mean, I've had people on my Facebook page say, oh, can I use oregano oil on my 6-month-old? And I said, I don't recommend using any essential oils until a child is maybe 3 to 5 years old, and then in a diffuser. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, and it's the same with pets and the elderly. You just don't really want to use essential oils on people that are going to be too sensitive, because people don't know how to use it.
Right.
And I've seen babies' feet get blistered, because of neat essential oil use. There's certain types of therapies that are put on the spine with like wintergreen and clove and oregano and things like that. People have gotten severely burned from this. Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, well, it helps with your chi and think, it draws out all the toxins. Well, I mean, these sort of things can cause serious, serious damage.
Yes.
I mean.
And you were talking about cats the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's the deal with cats? Something about they don't have an enzyme to process this?
Yeah, they don't have a certain enzyme to process essential oils. And
wow.
A number of years ago, it was a long time ago in Chicago when I lived there, and I was cat sitting, and I just went in to, feed the cat and whatever, but it really didn't like me. And so I would come by like a high shelf or something. The cat would be there and it would come and just attack me. So I actually started spraying this blend of mine called Balance. And and then the cat ended up loving it. But initially it just really stayed away. But I didn't know till years later that the cats really can't process essential oils. And because of what Sunil said about, so many millions of receptors compared to what we have millions in our nose of receptors that are going to process any kind of aroma. But it's just, I mean, if you are going to use something on your pet, there's so many there's a wonderful woman in Minneapolis. I forgot her name, but she's a veterinarian, and she actually practices, pet aromatherapy. So you really need someone like that who has done the research, but I'm not that kind of expert. I don't know anything.
When we see people like, let's say dogs having 200 million receptors in their nose and us having
Exactly.
a couple of million, then the idea is that, what we smell is different with what they smell.
Yeah,
They can smell
across a football field.
Yeah, they can smell a small little pea in a whole football field. Identify it, remember it. And so when people are like, oh, I'm putting this on my kids, my clothes, on the sheets, and the diffusers, and every, it's a little bit too much, and it's very strong.
It's overkill.
And we just don't understand, because they're not a vet or they don't understand the physiology. So so on the last segment here, since we're kind of getting short on time, let's give the listeners like some practical information of what can they use. Like, for example, for sleep, for anxiety, anything that you see that are common blends or common essential oils that people can use at home.
They're first aid kits.
First aid kit. So, I mean, obviously the go-to is lavender. It's the number one selling essential oil in the world. I call it the Swiss Army knife of essential oils. It's pretty much good for everything. But I have read statistics about the percentage of people in the U.S. that have sleep problems, and it's just astronomical. It's huge. And so even just taking a little lavender, 1 or 2 drops, maybe 1 drop of chamomile, and putting it on either a cotton, I like those little cotton rounds, just putting it under your, inside your pillowcase, or getting a diffuser right next to your bed and putting a couple drops in. You don't need more than, 3 to 5 drops, even in a diffuser. If you want something more direct on your body, use a nice unscented lotion. And, typically you're going to use about 20 drops per ounce, let's say, in any kind of a carrier. So, marjoram, chamomile, lavender, those are all really, really good ones to use. Sandalwood is another really good one. It's a little bit more expensive. And then for brightening up a room, all right, for seasonal affected disorder, let's say moods, we're going to do lemon and bergamot and orange and blood orange and things like that. A lot of those are my favorites. If you want to have a more sensual mood, you're going to use vanilla. There is actually, I carry an amazing cocoa bean essential oil. So cocoa bean, sandalwood, rose, jasmine. So all those are going to be really not only good for female concerns, but they're also very romantic. In my love potion classes, I talk a lot about those oils. Cardamom is my go-to for so many different things. And so I use cardamom way more than any kind of other spice oil. I mean, ginger's awesome, but I always have cardamom, especially when I travel. and I'll put just, a few drops of it in my hand. I'll put in a little jojoba or something like that, rub it on my stomach. Within minutes, I mean, whatever kind of gastric distress I'm having is awesome. So think about this. Any of the spice oils, all right? So we're talking black pepper, we're talking ginger, we're talking cinnamon, cardamom, but cardamom happens to be the most gentle of all of them, right? So those, I would say, are some of my go-tos. Anxiety, we talked a little bit about. So any of the citrus oils are really, really good for that. What other things do you think?
And I think we have a quick caller. Let's see if we
sure.
can get her on, and then we're almost out of time. So go ahead and see if we can get Irene on the phone. Sorry, the show is going so fast today.
I know.
Can we get Irene on the phone, Josh?
Are you there, Josh? Did you?
She should. Oh, she hung up.
Okay. All right. Well, sorry. Send us an email, radio@sanjevani.net. We'll answer your question. Sorry we didn't get to you. It was just going by very quick, and I wanted to get all this information out. We'll definitely have Kris coming back in the future, because I want you to eventually to tell people, layering and scents and notes and high notes and low notes.
Oh yeah, top, middle, and base notes. Yeah.
Top, middle, and base notes. I mean, this is a whole science of how you make scents and fragrances and perfumes, and not just like, here's just citrus or here's just lavender. But when you make a blend for people that say, I want to have this or that, how that this is what Kris, her expertise is. So again,
and I've done a bunch of them for you guys.
Oh yeah,
for us, and you've done it for many. What Maureen mentioned before, a lot of big hotels, the big companies, and everybody go back and listen to the beginning. Her great intro of all that. Also, I just want to mention that Kris also publishes a lot. She writes for many of the essential oils and aromatherapy journals. So this is an expert that you definitely, if you're interested on a custom blend, some specific things for you directly and understanding your health, she can help you. Her email is Kismet, KISMET potions.com, and you can definitely contact her. And one more time, go to sanjevani.net. Look at our food as medicine aspect. Also, we do want to recommend everybody to get my book. If you haven't read it yet, An Inflammation Nation, go to aninflammationnation.com. You can learn more about how to reduce inflammation through our 10 steps. And Maureen, anything you want to say on your birthday?
Oh, thank you, everybody, for wishing me a happy birthday. I would love to be in this field of lavender and friends somewhere. Wouldn't that be great? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kris, for joining us. And everybody, again, we want you to use essential oils. We are pro essential oil. We just want you to use it safely, effectively. Have some guidance. Have not a rep or somebody just selling you upline, downline. Have a physician, have a practitioner, or someone like Kris, who's an expert in the field. Have some guidance, and then you really know what to use at home, and you can use it safely for you and your family. So until next time, everybody, take care, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for joining us on Take Back Your Health.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You're clear.
All right, everybody, we're here on Facebook Live, I think, here. So thank you for joining us. We're going to just talk for a few more minutes, if you like. One of the things that we didn't get to talk about during the program was, sustainability. And I know a lot of companies are talking about sustainable sourcing, and that's also another buzzword. And we also see a lot of companies spending, making billions of dollars and just giving a couple $100,000 here or there, charitable arms, for communities in Africa and India. This is kind of what pharmaceutical companies do as well. Oil companies, all these big companies, they do this kind of charitable arm to show, some village in Africa, people sourcing, just like coffee companies now, right? Big coffee companies do that. Oh, we give back to the little farmers and all. But really, at the end of the day, that's just more of a PR piece than anything else, because most of those oils that they produce in the mass market of a line of, say, 40, 50 products, only maybe a handful actually may come from that sustainable farm that they're actually providing some water to. So I really want people to look further than just the quick, advertising, I feel so good that we're helping these people, but really looking at how can you actually get a good source oil, and how can you actually help donate or help people directly in kind that need financial help. Anything else you want to say?
Kris, I know that you source your oils from sustainable sources. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, and one of the things that I have been involved in for a long time is a co-op in Africa. And so I like working with co-ops because this gives everybody the opportunity. It might be a small farmer who only has an acre or two of land. It might be the opportunity for him or her to be able to join this co-op, even though their yield might not be that high every year, but then it offers us the opportunity as buyers to be able to enjoy the oils. And I actually, a number of years ago, I said, why do you have conventional? Why does it say conventional? And she said, well, they're just grown. They're not certified organic. And I said, well, you have to realize that here in the US, that conventional means that it's grown with pesticides. And she said, oh, I didn't realize that. So they changed their price list so that wasn't on there. But the majority of those people are those small farmers. They can't afford that USDA certified organic certification. They can't afford to get their land from 3 to 7 years without the use of pesticides. And they can't afford that every year that they have to pay that organic certification. So most of them are either wild harvested, wildly grown. They're grown without pesticides. They haven't been able ever to afford pesticides.
That's so good to know, because who would know that?
Yeah.
You would never imagine that.
Yeah. So, I mean, in most of these oils, I'm going to say 80% of oils are grown in developing nations. There's some grown in the U.S., not that much. There's some citrus, there's some mint, some basil. But
and I think those are the ones that you can get organic because they're just large,
and that
easy to produce, easy to get. The average person knows citrus. I have some here in my office, so yeah, it's a common thing, so it's easy. But yeah, getting like a cardamom and getting something else that's more of an exotic spice might be a little bit more difficult or even challenging because there's so much being sourced, or it's very expensive.
And it's picked by hand.
Right.
I mean, it's picked by people by hand. I mean, lavender and rosemary and basil and some of those oils are some of the only ones that are actually done with machinery.
Right.
Because they're huge fields and they're amenable to having it harvested like that. But most of the time, harvesting is done by hand. It might be,
How would you find an oil that comes from a co-op like that? You have to be an
through me.
Which is fine, everybody. People come to us for, where I'm going to get the best, curcumin and boswellia and ginger, black pepper, where are we getting the best supplements? Because we have to look at source. We have to look at potency, purity, where it's grown. When we grow our products, it comes on sourced farms that are controlled. And we have to ensure that they get paid fairly, they got to be treated correctly, and the crop is correct. But it happens a lot of times, I know with essential oils, it goes through the distiller. So it's just like a coffee grower. There's coffee growers who actually grow the beans and pick it, and then there's that middle person who's processing the beans or roasting the beans, and they're the ones who actually play the big game because they can give a little bit of the profits to the people who pick it, but really at the end of the day, they're the ones who are taking the contracts from the big companies. And this happens in every industry, but I just want people to be more aware so that when they're buying something, say at 100 times more the cost that it should be, that someone's being exploited even more on the down end. And even though we say, oh, we're giving them a little bit better life, that's really questionable. How much better are we giving them considerably when a company's making that much more margin?
Right. I mean, if you're paying, let's say, $12 to $18 for a 10 mil, 1/3 ounce of lavender, that's about an average price. But if you're paying $30 to $40 for a 10 mil of lavender, that lavender better be really special.
But it's special to most people because they get a trip, they get a car,
exactly.
They get whatever, on
downline,
upline.
I'm not going to pay for anybody I don't want my customers to have to pay for the downline of somebody else.
No, and I just want to explain, for most people to know, in just most retail industries, just like a store, grocery store market, there's like keystoning where, they get a product and they double it, right? And that's just how everything kind of just works on a margin of, and that's how stores have to make money, pharmacies have to make money, everybody has to, charge for their services. The problem is when they go directly to the consumer and then they charge even more than the regular retail market, then that's just profitability. That's just, so I always tell people sometimes it's better just to go to the store, believe it or not, and buy an essential oil, because we know, like, say if you buy something, say for $25-$30, it might cost, say, the store $15 to buy it. That's a better quality oil than something that someone's buying for like $90 or $85, and actually, in sense, the company might have made it for 50 cents. And so
Yes.
there's this, sometimes like, so people go, should I buy this most expensive fancy market? They're like, no, just make sure you go to the store, make sure it's a reputable source. There's, especially with tinctures and stuff that we'll talk about in another episode, is that there's a very few manufacturers that actually do, for the whole country. So that most of these things are private label, just different potencies that are being sold. And so it's like they can say, well, what's your price point? Well, if it's a $15 price point, then this is the potency that you get. If it's a $30, if it's I want it for $5.99, then this is the potency. But everybody's not actually making their own oils. They're actually outsourced. So that's the difference that people have to understand in terms of this.
Well, and
industry.
you have to read the label. I mean, read the fine print. Essential oil bottles are little. You really have to read the fine print. There's certain store brands out there that might say, like in their Rose Absolute, Rose Absolute, Rose Fragrance. Rose fragrance is fragrance, okay?
Right.
So you it's null and void when you have a fragrance with an essential oil in my book.
And sometimes what happens is just for me, my purposes, I have trouble reading the bottles. They're so small, right? So sometimes it's kind of hard. I'm looking at, the store that sometimes have a little magnifying glass. I'm trying to look at, which species. And again, not everybody's a botanist. So it's like, it sounds like it. It smells like in the tester. So obviously most people are going to go by what we kind of just generally know. And since most things have been perfumes and artificial fragrances in the world, like people. So what people would really smell is lavender. I'm sure if we got real lavender and what they get in a aromatic, thing that you put on your clothing, right, or your laundry detergent, they wouldn't really know the difference because we've only smelled this one for such a long time. That's our baseline of what we think is good. Just like the fake rose fragrances. It's not real.
Yeah,
rose
like
oil.
Grandma Rose, right?
Right.
I mean.
Yeah, so that's where I think it's hard because our own baseline of what we think is a good smell or the real stuff, we haven't had it, just like with real food and real spices.
Yeah, and you have to think about how much of a flower or a portion of the plant has to go in to make just one small 10 ml bottle of it. Especially
1,000 pounds of rose petals to make 1 pound of rose oil.
That's just incredible.
1,000 pounds.
How much?
1,000 pounds of rose petals to make 1 pound of rose oil.
Yeah, see, so it's like the curcumin of the turmeric, right? It's like so much, but then people say, well, how can I get this so it's so cheap? Because it's not real.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what people need to start understanding.
We're inundated in this society with so many synthetic things. I mean, I bought some razor blades, for like shaving my legs. They were scented and they were disgusting. Why do I need scented razor blades, right?
Like,
we don't even want to go there. Like, I don't know.
I feel like that with the Kleenex. I don't want scented Kleenex.
No.
That's going to make me sneeze even worse.
Even more, right?
Yeah, I've seen toilet paper and Kleenex, paper towels now, all the cleaning detergents, softeners, everything is just, inundated with things.
Inundated is
so your whole house has all these different synthetic smells coming out of it. You've got Febreze this, Febreze that. Oh, God. It's too much. It's overwhelming, and you can imagine.
Too much.
That's why we have so many allergies and the poor pet. How do they?
But then Zyrtec and all the other, companies that are, of course, they're in
allergy medicines
in cahoots with them, right?
Another subject.
Just like you just get strung out on this, but hopefully everybody who's been listening, and hopefully you share this information, because we really want people to use essential oils correctly, and we want people to learn correctly. There's a lot of books. I mean, Kris mentioned some of the books. And go back and listen to this episode again to the authors and some of those teachers. Also contact Kris at Kismet-Potions. Go to kismetpotions.com and just ask her questions or take a class from her or get a special blend. It's interesting because just like when people come to us and we have products and herbs and nutraceuticals, there's a difference in the game of your health and how you really appreciate it, and then you learn how to use it correctly. So we want people to use this to take back their health, but take it correctly, and then how to use it, and you're experts. You're building a team of providers that that you can just get it, rather than someone at the church or someone at the grocery market just trying to sell you something, and really it's really for their benefit, even though they're trying to tell you that's good for you. And so
that's what complementary medicine really is all about. Is essential oils aren't a panacea, right? I mean, we've got wonderful foods in this planet that we can eat, essential oils. We've got your supplements. I mean, it's how you take care of yourself. Do you do yoga? Do you meditate or whatever? Do you run? It doesn't matter. But there's all these different things in your life that need to come together.
Right. And I think what happens
But it's
right now
not just one thing.
yeah, most people right now, the essential oils is the, the big thing. Like I just do essential
It
oils.
is.
I don't change my diet. I don't exercise. I don't. And so it's like, it's weird. It's like
Grapefruit.
they're eating a cheeseburger, French fries, bacon cheeseburger, smoking, drinking, and I take essential oils. I'm like, that's just really weird. And I see posts on Facebook all the time with people, with very unhealthy lifestyles, unfortunately, but gloriously, celebrating that this is going to help them. And unfortunately, it's a little bit more complicated.
Another magic bullet, but I can tell you all that Kris is a wonderful teacher. So, be on the lookout for any of classes that she's going to teach. She does cooking classes. She does custom-made oils. Love it.
Yeah, and so if she's in your area, if you look at her website, if she has events or anything, if she comes to your town, gives a lecture, something definitely worth going, because it's just like coming to see us. We're experts in something. She's an expert. Again, 28 years. Again, most people just heard of essentials in the last couple years, right? Or even last 5-10 years, really.
I'm one of the grandmas of aromatherapy.
Which is
so much fun too. You'll just laugh the whole time. It's
great. And she's made, just like gave everybody, we've done blends, and we'll talk about this on another show, but we go through the different notes, as you mentioned, the different levels of the notes. And when you make a custom blend, it's like your blend.
And you get so high off of making it.
I never buy anything from the store because it's my blend, and it has the things that I feel that are like the fragrances and the oils and the scents that are perfect, that are natural, that make me feel good, that make my brain turn on, that make me feel calm and clear. But for someone else, it would be different. And that's why, like, when people use this perfumes and they go out and they go, oh my God, every time we have someone come through our building or down, if I'm at a grocery store and you can smell someone else's perfume, it's like, whoa, it's just this horrible thing. What nice thing to actually have a personalized, individualized scent.
Yeah, and
a real natural one.
They pet our therapy dog, and then at night we get in bed and go, "Oh my gosh,
no,
what perfume is that?"
We gotta wipe our dog down. Like someone in our office smell like bad oils came from my dog. Thinking it's like no.
Well, there's something in French, and they call it silage.
Oh yeah.
And so the literal translation is like the trail of a snail. But what it means is when someone comes into a room and their fragrance kind of wafts over, after they leave. So it's like a trail of scent that they leave. Well, how beautiful would it be to have a natural silage instead of a fake silage, right?
Right.
So,
that reminds me when I lived in the Middle East, and I would go up to the top of the sand dunes and slide down the sand dunes. But I remember one day I was at the very top of this sand dune and I could smell this perfume wafting over me, and I'm like, I don't even see anybody. And then it took like half an hour before I saw anyone, and there were some women walking past the bottom of the sand dune. So that it was pretty incredible.
Did it smell nice, or?
It was nice. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Wow.
Wonderful. So anything else you want to say to anybody else on Facebook Live?
No, but it seems like I'm having some trees getting cut down in the background here, so I'm going to move to the other room.
Anything else you want to say, Maureen?
No, I think we've done our dash for the day.
All right, everybody. Thank you again for watching us. Again, go to Sangevity.net, sign up for our newsletter for any information. Go to kismetpotions.com, contact Kris, learn a little bit more about essential oils, get your questions answered from a master in the field, and join us in Curacao in August. And until next week, thank you for joining us, and
thank you.
Best of health, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Kris.
Namaste. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Happy birthday, honey.
Thank you.